online after the workshop. All questions and comments received tonight will be documented and they will be posted online. Before we get started, we are going to give you a little bit of kind of technology housekeeping information related to the meeting. We are using Zoom webinar this evening. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Janet Chang, who's also with PlaceWorks, to give a brief overview about Zoom webinar and explain some of the functions about it. So Janet.
Thanks, Isabel. So on the screen here, we're just going to give you a little bit of an orientation to the controls you see using Zoom webinar. I'm sure all of you are very used to Zoom or have joined other Zoom meetings, but a lot of this meeting will involve a presentation. So we recommend, in order to fully look at the presentation, to view it at a full screen, and you can click on that little icon in the top right corner. You can always press escape on your keyboard to exit the full screen function. And during the presentation, if you have any questions, you can click on the icon in the toolbar with the little Q&A icon and type in your questions, and that will be viewable to everyone. And also the panelists will have some designated times for Q&A to try to answer your questions live. And if you have any technical questions, you can also use the chat window, and those messages will be sent to our hosts and panelists, and we can try to assist you if you're running into any technical questions or technical problems. That's the little chat icon with the speech bubble, and then on the right-hand side, you can type in your message. If you're joining us through a smartphone, your view will be slightly different. So we have some screens up here to show you what it would look like. You access Q&A at the top, and you can type in your Q&A in a separate window. And then to access the chat, you'll have to click the More button in the bottom right corner, and you'll be able to use that function to talk to our hosts and panelists if you're running into technical issues.
Great, thank you, Janet. And so now I'm going to just give a little overview of tonight's agenda. It consists of this introduction, a review of the project background. Then we're going to go into talking about the planning process that led up to this meeting, as well as the plans for completing the RTMP. Following that, we will have, so we're going to have a few question and answer sessions throughout this meeting this evening. So following that background information and the planning process overview, we will have a Q&A session. Then we will present, State Parks will present the change in use process and give an overview of the status of the previous requests. That will then be followed by another Q&A session. Finally, we will have an additional interactive portion where we will ask all participants to provide some additional input about preferences and priorities related to the Folsom area state parks and the RTMP. And then finally, we will conclude and present our next steps in the planning process. And we'll give a little overview if folks want to stay at the end on the State Parks Trails app and an interactive challenge that is specific to this, to Folsom Area State Parks and this project. Just as Janet mentioned, the reminders there, please use chat if you need technical assistance, and we'll try to help you out there. But use the Q&A function to ask questions and provide comments. We are going to try to respond to as many questions as possible in a live Q&A, but we may also be typing in some of the answers in order to get to everybody's questions. So as many questions as possible. If we don't get to them all, we will, again, document them and post them to the website and make sure those questions do get answered. With that, I will turn it over to Rich Preston from State Parks. Rich is the Folsom Sector Superintendent. with state parks.
Thanks, Isabel. Good evening, everybody. As Isabel said, my name's Rich Preston. I'm the Folsom Sector Superintendent for California State Parks. I would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening to talk about the Folsom Sector State Parks Road and Trail Management Plan. I'm very excited that this plan is moving forward again. I know it has been a long time coming, and I would like to thank those of you who have, over the years, continued to push us to the completion of this plan. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, thank you for your engagement and providing your valued input into this process. With the help of our consultants at PlaceWorks, I am very confident that we will complete this plan on schedule. I just want to take a quick moment to introduce the remaining state park and PlaceWorks staff on our project team. From the State Parks Northern Service Center, we have Jason Spann, Associate Landscape Architect, Noel Bittenbach, Associate Park and Recreation Specialist. From our Goldfields District Office, we have our Acting District Superintendent, Barry Smith, and Jim Michaels, our Senior Park and Recreation Specialist. From our partners at PlaceWorks, we have Isabel Min, Isby Fleischman, Ricky Pozos, Janet Chang, and Giselle Vandrick. Now, Isabel's going to provide you a quick opportunity to tell us a bit about yourselves.
Great. So just to get an overview, I know we have 59 individual participants signed up, but we'd love to hear a little more about you. I know that some of those may have several people, but we have some questions that should have popped up on your screen, and we're hoping you can answer these questions. There's 2 of them. How far do you typically travel to get to Folsom area state parks? And how do you most often use trails within the Folsom area state parks? I know it might be multiple, but select the one that is most applicable to you or your group. Yeah, we're just collecting a few of those. Do that for another minute. And then Ricky, who is doing the poll, will close it, and we'll have the results pop up. Okay, folks had a chance. Ricky, do you want to do the results? All right, so here are the results. These are just the intro questions. We are going to have a number of additional questions and interactive polls this evening. So this is just about who's here tonight. How far do you typically travel? It looks like 36% are less than 1 mile. So a lot of immediate neighbors to the parks are here. And you can see others, 25% 1 to 5 miles, 12% between 5 and 10, 19% 10 to 25 miles. And then we have 3 groups or individuals, 7% who are more than 25 miles. So that's a good snapshot of who's here this evening. And then on the second question, how do you most often use trails within the park? You can see 10% hikers and walkers, 7% trail running, 81% mountain biking, and a couple percent users of e-vehicles, scooters, skateboards, etc. So that's who's at this meeting tonight. Of course, this project is making sure we hear from participants and user groups representing all the groups here, but you can see the breakdown of for tonight's meeting. So with that, I will turn it back over to Rich and Jim to give us a little more on the project background, and we will be back with more Q&A throughout the meeting.
Great, thank you, Isabel, and everybody for participating in those surveys. Now I want to provide you just a little bit of background and context for the road and trail management plan. The Folsom Sector State Parks consist of the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and the Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park. Combined, these parks see just under 3 million visitors annually. The Folsom Lake State Recreation Area is approximately 20,000 acres of land and water, and it is centered around two reservoirs, Folsom Lake and Lake Natoma. There are approximately 13 primary park entrances and several smaller entrances around the two reservoirs. Most of the land around the two reservoirs is federal land administered by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, though there are approximately 2,200 acres of land owned by the state. State Park manages the recreation activities on federal land through a managing partnership agreement with Reclamation. This is a 25-year agreement that was signed back in 2012. There are approximately 120 miles of system trails within the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area that serve a wide array of trail uses, including walkers, hikers, trail runners, equestrians, mountain bikes, and road cyclists. In addition to the 120 miles of system trails, there are approximately 50 miles of non-system trail. These consist primarily of user-created trails that have been established over time. There are approximately 20 miles of public access park roads, and these include both paved and dirt roadways. In comparison to the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area, the Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park is relatively small. It's approximately 35 acres in size, and it too consists of both state and federal lands. The park's primary purpose is to preserve and interpret the historic Folsom Powerhouse that began sending power on July 13th, 1895. This site was the first power generation facility to send three-phase, 60-cycle alternating current over long-distance transmission lines 22 miles to Sacramento. There are approximately 2.5 miles of trails in this park, consisting of footpaths within the core of the State Historic Park, trails to Lake Natoma and the Native American Grinding Rock site, as well as trails along the historic canal on the northeast side of Greenback Lane. The Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park General Plan and Resource Management Plan was completed for both park units and was approved in the fall of 2009 by the State Park and Recreation Commission. The general plan provides direction for the preparation of a trail management plan. At the time, the current template for a road and trail management plan had not yet been fully developed by the department. In addition to providing direction for a specific trail management plan, the general plan also lists several goals and guidelines on trail management, as well as trail development proposals. Some of these examples include provide a trail at Dike 7, provide a trail access at Dike 7, which may include a small trailhead with parking and trail information signs. Another was develop a class 1 bike path from the trailhead at Mormon Island Dam to Dike 7, and develop a multidisciplinary volunteer trail patrol, which would include representatives from each of our trail user groups that model a shared use ethic. These are just a few examples, and I would welcome you to review the general plan for additional road and trail related items. The general plan is available on our state parks website. Next up is Jim Michaels, who will go into the purpose and content of a road and trail management plan.
Thanks, Rich. Again, Jim Michaels, Senior Park and Recreation Specialist with the Goldfields District. I want to provide a bit more information about the purpose and content of a road and trail management plan, or RTMP. The RTMP is intended to provide specific and detailed management direction for roads and trails within a park unit. This will help guide the operation, maintenance, and development of the park unit roads and trails into the future. The plan will include identifying new trail routes, roads, or other trail facilities to be developed, make decisions regarding non-system trails, whether to keep, eliminate, or realign these non-system or user-created trails, prioritize the maintenance needs for both trails and roads, make decisions on requests for change in use designations for specific trails, for example, whether to add bike use to a trail where it is currently prohibited, identifying any trailhead facility needs and improvements such as parking, restrooms, trailhead signage. And lastly, identifying education and interpretive needs for the road and trail system. This might include wayfinding signs, trail etiquette and safety programs, and other volunteer programs. So why is a road and trail management plan needed? As Rich indicated, the RTMP was identified as a need in the Folsom Lake SRA general plan. Also, Folsom Lake SRA has one of the largest and most complex trail systems within the California State Park system. And more specific direction is needed for trails than is normally provided for in a park unit general plan. The district has received multiple requests for changing use designations of trails within Folsom Lake State Recreation Area. The Road Trail Management Plan provides the opportunity to consider these change in use proposals in the context of the entire Folsom Lake SRA trail system. Here's a brief review of the work that has been completed thus far on the Folsom Road and Trail Management Plan. The plan was initiated in late 2012, early 2013. Starting in 2013, an inventory and condition assessment of all system roads and trails was implemented. Data was also gathered on many non-system trails. Most of the GPS and GIS work on the trails was completed in 2013 or 2014, but some of this work is ongoing. An on-site visitor survey was conducted in 2013 and 2014 to gather input from trail users on how they use the trails and to get their ideas on how trails might be improved. This visitor intercept survey was implemented at 18 locations in the park over the course of a year, resulting in over 750 completed surveys. The survey report is available on the department webpage for the Road and Trail Management Plan. Also in 2014, 3 focus group meetings were held as part of the Road and Trail Management planning process. This included meetings with mountain bike representatives, equestrian representatives, road cyclists, and other paved trail stakeholders. Summaries of these meetings are also available online. In the following couple of years, 2015 and 2016, field evaluations were completed for all changing use requests that were received. We will discuss the changing use process and these evaluations later in the presentation. In 2017 through 2019, trail maintenance recommendations were developed. These are specific trail segment by segment recommendations identifying if the trail requires maintenance, reconstruction, realignment, or some other action. This brings us to the current year, 2021. This spring, we reinitiated the road trail planning process with assistance from our strategic planning division. And in July, we brought on PlaceWorks to assist with the process. As Rich mentioned, we know that progress on this plan has been slow and frustrating to many. However, we now have state park staff and a consultant team dedicated to complete the plan in a timely manner. Next, Isby is going to describe the process and schedule to complete the road and trail management plan.
Thank you, Jim. Right, so it's really a thrill to be able to assist with this process, and we are really excited to see this plan to completion. So the current planning process to complete the RTMP is a plan for 18 to 24 months, culminating with the final plan next winter. So winter 2022/2023. The planning process itself is broken into 4 key phases. I'm going to talk about each of these in a little more detail, but this just provides an overview. With existing conditions work mostly completed already. And currently you see in the orange, we're in the visitor and trail use analysis phase. And this is really where we're focused on looking for your input and visitor input on preferences and priorities. From here, we will be developing the draft plan, and there'll be additional opportunities to provide input with a public meeting and review the draft plan. And based on that, we will be doing environmental review, which will include both CEQA and NEPA compliance. And there will be another opportunity to review the plan in the summer of 2022. So as I mentioned, I want to walk through just a little bit about what's happening in each of these phases. The first phase, again, mostly complete, that is really laying the foundation to make sure that the plan is grounded in realities of both what's on the ground and the planning context, what's happening in the surrounding area and other jurisdictions and so forth. So some of the key aspects are assessing road and trail conditions, which is the on the ground work that State Parks has been working hard on and is near completion. The other aspect is reviewing planning context. And you heard a little bit about the Folsom SRA general plan. That is one of the key documents. And again, we're ensuring consistency with this, as well as looking at county general plans and other planning documents to make sure that everything is aligned and consistent and that all opportunities are considered. The other big part here is looking at all the input that has been received through the focus groups and the surveys and other outreach, as well as just general emails and correspondence that's happened over the last 10 years during the planning process, that the longer term planning process that Jim just described. And from all of that, we're gathering the proposed changes, additions and improvements in order that they can all be considered as part of the RTMP. I do want to take a moment to highlight some of the input that we've already heard. And again, this goes back for multiple years. A full complete list is available on the project webpage. You can see, you'll be able to access that there. And tonight, I just want to very briefly highlight some of the key themes and the types of considerations that we've heard from people so far. This includes concern regarding the length of time for completing the planning process. So we're excited that this planning process is on track to be completed next year. There are the specific change in use requests for including changes, requests for addition of mountain biking to certain trails, and we'll be talking about that in detail tonight. There's a request for increased connectivity, improved maintenance, and specific repairs to certain trails and roads. There's requests or interests and comments about increasing mountain bike opportunities, and there's a range of comments in this category, including bike skills, various ideas for incorporating bike skills features into trails. There's recommendations for paving specific trails. And we are hearing that a general support for balancing the different recreational uses, allowing for additional volunteer involvement and opportunities, ways to engage. Interest in user education about trail etiquette, which includes safety. And also interesting equestrian improvements to equestrian facilities, as well as safety precautions for these users. And lastly, interest in wayfinding, both need to update and distribute maps or increase signage and clearly identify trail uses. So again, these are just the type of comments that we're hearing, and we will be continuing to collect comments, and you can see this expanded list on the website. So as I mentioned, the current phase that we're in is really looking for input. And as far as part of that, we are trying to get the word out about this planning process. You hopefully have seen the project website. This will be kept up to date throughout the process, and you can access maps and materials and other opportunities to participate through the webpage. State Parks has done several pop-up events, so there's been tables throughout. Hopefully you've seen some of them. You can see some of the events listed here. There's social media updates, and we have a contact list that's expanding. If you received email for this event, then you are on that contact list. Please tell your friends. You can sign up on the website. And we'll also be having trailhead signage very soon, where people will be notified as they enter their trailheads about the park and some of the opportunities to participate. And as for gathering input, there's multiple ways that we are trying to gather input and make sure we hear from everyone. One of them is through these public meetings. So thank you for being here tonight. And the second one, as I mentioned previously, will be to review the draft RTMP, and that will be in the spring. We're also doing an online trail survey. Hopefully some of you have already taken that. We've had close to 900 completed to date, and that can be accessed on the project website as well. There's a link at the bottom of the screen tonight, and we'll continue to provide that. And there's also an on-site challenge. And this is really a kind of a survey you take while moving through the site by downloading the Outer Spatial, which is the California State Parks Trails app. And through this app on your phone, as you move through the park, you can respond to different questions while you're out on site. So it's an on-site survey. And at the end of the meeting, we'll walk through how you can sign up for that. All right. I also just want to note, you can always also respond or send emails to the trails.cal or the trails email that will be given you at the end of this meeting. All right, so as far as the plan itself, the plan will have recommendations for trail segments as well as entire trail units, and then broader recommendations for different areas of the park. Shown here are the 7 different areas that will have around which the management plan recommendations will be organized. And lastly, there will be overall park-wide, broader, bigger picture recommendations as well. This is a little bit of what you can expect to see in the spring. As mentioned, we will be doing environmental review. And because the parks do include both federal and state lands, we will be doing environmental review in compliance with both the California Environmental Quality Act and the National Environmental Policy Act. The environmental review process will include environmental resource analysis, where we assess the recommendations for any potential impacts. And then we'll be doing technical studies, public notices, and responding to any comments received through that process. There will be a public review process for the CEQA-NEPA draft RTMP. There'll be a unique draft of the RTMP, as well as the CEQA and NEPA documents themselves. All right, so we want to take a moment to pause and just answer some of the questions that have come in.
Great. Yeah, and you and I are going to be doing this. We have about, well, we're going to take the time to answer the questions that are in the chat. There was a question about the sample size when we did the earlier poll, and I think at the time there were probably about 67, 68 folks. I know there are more that have been trickling in since we did that poll. But you know, of those, I do want to point out that about 10 of them are the panelists. So there are, so the number of participants right now looks like 77, but that means, you know, minus the participants, there are approximately 66 participants who have a unique login to this meeting. Then the next question is to explain why we had to just choose one activity on the poll. And I believe on the survey, it should have been, you should have been able to have multiple answers. Tonight, just for tonight, it was meant more to be more of an icebreaker for just who's here and what the predominant uses are represented. We're gonna have some more questions about how people use the park tonight. But if the survey didn't allow you to choose multiple, it should have. So Izzy, do you wanna say a word or two about that?
Yeah, and you should be able to choose 3, and we're looking into that. It looks like in our test, like you are able to, so we'll follow up on that. So thank you for letting us know about that potential issue. And we do understand and want to hear from people about the multiple activities, so that's important. We had another question from Kathy about saying, why does this trails plan require full NEPA CEQA? Isn't it part of another plan that covers this? The RTMP, the Road and Trail Management Plan, is a distinct plan, so it will require, and the general plan is almost 10 years old. So it does require distinct documents. That being said, we do anticipate that it's most likely that an initial study negative declaration is most likely for the CEQA, and that a FONSI, or finding of no significant impacts, is most likely the document for the for the NEPA. Jim, did you want to say anything else about that?
No, you pretty much covered it. The RTMP will tier to the general plan and the programmatic EIR that the department prepared for the change in use process. So presumably we'll have a lower level of CEQA and NEPA compliance than those 2 plans did.
Okay. So the next question was, when does the online survey close? So we're planning on having the survey open for 4 months, which will mean most likely the beginning of February, and we will send out announcements before it closes and try to get any last comments.
Great. The next question, will the introductory slides be available to the public? And I think the El Guapo who's asking the question is referring to the presentation tonight. And yes, this presentation and the summary will be made available on the website.
All right. We're receiving some comments as well. Let's go through the questions first, and then we'll see if we have any extra time. And if not, we'll hold those till the end. But we do have a question. Does the RTMP address Pioneer Express Trail from Granite Bay North to Auburn State Recreation Area? And the answer is yes, but Jim?
Yeah. The answer is yes.
All right. Let's see.
Let's see, next question. Does the RTMP address the Pioneer Express Trail from?
We just got that
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry. In regard to the pop-up events. Yeah, so we want to put that in answer. Regarding the pop-up events, no event is scheduled that focuses on people who specifically use the dirt trails. With a significant number of trail running and trail riding events, it does seem that one of those would have been great opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point. And we actually, several of the events did include some of the running events, the trail running events. And I'm pulling up my list, but the Granite Bay Trails to Ailes was one of those. And we had, I wanted to read the whole list here. Here we go. So Electricity Fair was a kind of broader user group, and then the Peddlers Fair as well, a broader users group. And then both the Granite Head Trails to Ailes and the Folsom Blues Breakout did get input from some of the, or reach out to some of the dirt trail users or the trail runners, as both of those had running events.
Okay, I want to be mindful of time, and I think we can, some of these questions are actually about change in use. So if that's okay, I think, Jason, my suggestion would be we present the change in use portion of the presentation, and then we can come to these questions that are related to that topic. Does that sound okay?
Okay. That sounds good. If we go to the next slide, please. So hi, as Rich explained, my name is Jason Spann. I'm an associate landscape architect and planner with California State Parks. And one of my responsibilities is to help facilitate road and trail management processes throughout the state. And to date, I've worked on 7 other road and trail management plans. My primary responsibility with this project is to assist the district in the development of the road and trail management plan, and also to manage the contract with our consultant and partner PlaceWorks. So I'm going to just really briefly summarize the California State Park change in use process. There's a lot more detailed information online that you can really, if you really want to get into the details, it's there. So this process was developed in 2013 to provide a more objective way of determining if change in use should be occurring on trails within the department. Prior to that, there really was no process in place. So the first thing that happens is a request is received, and that request is typically received at the district level, typically by the district superintendent. You may or may not know that California State Parks has 20 different districts, and these districts oversee the park units within those geographic areas of responsibility. The next step would be to actually go out and do an inventory of the requested trail or trails. And this would involve State Park actually getting on the ground and documenting the existing conditions of the trail to see how it is currently performing. Once that's complete, there is a evaluation that occurs, and a multidisciplinary team of park staff consisting of typically a natural and cultural resource specialist, a trail specialist, and somebody representing law enforcement goes out and completes a 7-point evaluation form that the department has developed. And Jim's going to go over these 7 points a little bit more in more detail when he speaks to the change in use requests that were asked for Folsom. So once the evaluation is complete, there is a recommendation by the team, and that recommendation could be to reject the change in use, Could be to put the change in use on hold for some reason. Could be to approve under existing conditions. It could be an approval with conditions such as design and management modifications that might be necessary for trail safety and sustainability prior to allowing the change in use. Also, if more than one trail is requested, there may be a call for a road and trail management plan. And that's the case for the Folsom area parks where there were multiple requests. So in our road and trail management plan, not only allows the evaluation of the trails individually, but it also allows for a comprehensive evaluation of how the change in use would affect the park or the region. So once that's done, there's a solicitation of public and stakeholder input on the recommendations. And for Folsom area parks, that's going to be provided through the public input opportunities that we've discussed tonight that are associated with the road and trail management plan. So once the recommendations are in and the public input has been gathered, there's a decision, and that decision is made by the district superintendent, who considers the evaluation and public input. And for Folsom, this will be determined during the road and trail management process through the road and trail management proposals that are either going to approve or reject the change in use request. So for those trails that have been approved, the park and the public would then determine what the priorities of which trails would then go into implementation, and then funding availability would also or may also be necessary to provide any necessary trail or management modifications prior to implement the change in use. The approved trails in the road trail management plan will also require a project-specific CEQA and necessary permits prior to that implementation. Once those are implemented, oftentimes there is an adaptive use management process that follows up. And essentially what that's doing is monitoring to see if the change in use objectives for experience, safety, sustainability, and resource protection are being met. And if they're not being met, developing strategies to correct these. So that's just a kind of a broad overview of the process. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim now, who's going to really discuss the change use process as it's applied to the Folsom area parks.
Thanks, Jason. As part of the 2014 stakeholder meetings, state parks solicited input on the road and trail management plan, including change in use proposals. State parks receive requests to evaluate adding bikes to nearly all of the trails within Folsom Lake State Recreation Area where bike use is prohibited. This includes the trails around Lake Natoma, including the Snowberry, Middle Ridge, Shady, and Snipes Pershing Ravine trails, the Pioneer Express Trail from Lake Natoma all the way up to Auburn State Recreation Area, the Los Lagos Trail, the Mormon Island Wetlands Trails, the Monte Vista Trails, which are just off Salmon Falls Road, and the Browns Ravine to Old Salmon Falls Trail. These trails, as Jason mentioned, were all walked by a district team, which included staff from public safety, natural and cultural resources, and trail specialists. The trails were evaluated using that 7-point evaluation tool that Jason mentioned. And this includes assessing factors related to the existing conditions of the trail, the compatibility with existing visitor uses, facilities, and services, circulation patterns, how the change in use might affect trail safety, trail sustainability, and the effects to natural and cultural resources. And lastly, the effects to the operation and maintenance of the trail. Some longer trails, such as the Pioneer Express Trail, were evaluated in shorter logical segments. The district change in use team made initial recommendations for individual trails or segments. As part of completing the road and trail management plan, these change in use recommendations will be further evaluated in the context of the entire Folsom Lake SRA trail system before finalizing the decisions in the road and trail management plan. An exception is the Browns Ravine to Old Salmon Falls Trail, which is one of the trails for which an initial evaluation on change in use has been completed. The district has decided to move forward with a decision on change in use for this trail, separate from but parallel with the development of the road and trail management plan. The reasons for assessing this trail as a standalone change in use include: the trail was previously assessed as an individual change in use proposal as far back as 2001 and the Folsom Lake Trails Advisory Group. The terrain along this trail is relatively gentle with good sight lines for the most part. There are very durable soils along this trail which will hold up to any increased use. There are multi-use trail segments on either end of this trail. Lastly, looking at this trail in context with the entire Folsom Lake SRA trail system, the decision regarding this trail would likely be the same whether made individually or as part of the road and trail management plan. If approved, the standalone change in use decision allows the district to move forward with this change in use ahead of the road and trail management plan. There will be a public meeting in December 2021 or January 2022 specific to the Browns Ravine change in use proposal. At that meeting, information will be presented about the proposed Browns Ravine change in use, including the proposed change in use recommendation, and the public will have the opportunity to provide input to help inform the final decision. We will use the road and trail management plan contact list to announce the meeting date, among other means. Specific discussion regarding the Browns Ravine change in use proposal will occur during this December 2021 or January 2022 meeting. Next, I think we're going to take some additional questions.
Great. Thank you, Jason and Jim. Yes, we will take some additional questions. There are some in the Q&A right now. I think we have been typing in a few answers as we go so that we can get to all of them. I am going to go to the top question I see here from Mike about restricting equestrian users to specific trails, and has a comment also that horses do immense damage to existing trails. Just look at today and tomorrow and consistently leave manure in the middle of trails, seemingly without any effort to remove it. So I think that is, regarding restricting equestrian users to specific trails, so relevant to this potential change in use. And I think Jim or Jason, I'll let you comment on that one.
I'll take a stab first. As probably many people know, there are at least one trail or a couple trails where equestrians are currently prohibited. The Darrington Trail for one. That's input people can provide to the plan, and we'll consider that input as part of developing the road and trail management plan. Jason, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Well, I think the plan is going to be looking at, sustainability for all trails, not just equestrian trails, and trying to determine ways of making all trails more sustainable. So that would also include trails that equestrians use.
Great.
Do you have another question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's see. So the next question is, does the RTMP address the time of use for trails? For example, after a big storm like the one we just had, should we try to educate folks to avoid using the trails and prevent major damage? I think this is about education and outreach. Rich, is this one that you would like to take?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know that. I think that the plan could address time of use and weather considerations. But yeah, we're always open for additional education of folks on when they should and shouldn't use the trails. We do limit currently the use of the trails after significant rain events for our special events and larger events. So we do already have some of that in practice.
Great. And somewhat related, we have a question from Tim that I'm just going to jump to the end of it. He's noting that there's a significant erosion and other issues that need to be addressed more immediately. And is there a fast track for the trail maintenance effort to prevent further damage? So acknowledging the importance of the long-term plan, but asking for a fast track.
Well, I'm happy to answer some
Great.
of that. Something that doesn't get put in what we're talking about today is the future and some of the folks that we have on staff. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, but it's actually creating a team of people able to do the work and having a staff with the tools to do the work. And what is probably not known to a lot of folks out there is that the district has created a specific trails team. And right now that's about 5 people, and which, with doing the road and trails management plan may in the future give us some faster time in getting on some of these trails and doing some much needed repairs that need to be done. So I just wanted to put that out there that we are looking towards the future, and part of that future is having a team of people to do the work and having the tools to do the work. And that's where, we hope in the future that we can actually work with volunteers, not only with our team, but the volunteers out there from all the disciplines to help improve these trails and the conditions of these trails.
Isby, could I add one thing here? Yeah,
Please.
appreciate the comment and the question. We don't need to wait for the road and trail management plan to do trail maintenance or trail repair work or trail projects for that matter. We have some ongoing. And as Barry said, we're trying to build our capacity to do trail work in-house. But as far as trail maintenance, we don't need to wait for the completion of the road and trail management plan to initiate that work. And there is some work currently happening on some of the trails within the park unit.
Great. We have a question from Colin, and he thought maybe Jason would be the right one to answer it. And he says, I presume there will be an EIS, EIR for the entire RTMP that covers the plan, including the CIU proposals. And I think that the EIS, EIR could cover future proposed trails and the trail work. Is that the general point?
Yeah, that's a good question. As was previously discussed, the road and trail management plan will be tiering off the general plan, which was an EIR. So I do not anticipate that the road and trail management plan will be an EIR. I think more probably it will be a mitigated neg deck or a negative declaration. And that would cover the trail work. Well, it'll cover some aspects of the work in the plan. In previous plans, we've been able to include a lot of the maintenance, what we're considering maintenance activities on trails, which could include reconstruction and re-engineering of existing trails. We've been able to include those under the plan. But if it comes down to stuff like new trails, brand new facilities, trailheads, and that sort of thing, those will, at least they have been needing to have a project specific CEQA involved in them. So they can get approved, made a recommendation in the road and trail management plan, but for a lot of those new facilities, we would still need to do a project specific plan on those, because there's a lot of survey work and additional work that would need to go into those prior to implementation. So I hope that helps answer that. Once again, hoping to get a lot of what we consider kind of more maintenance activities of existing trails built into and covered under the CEQA of the plan, but so far we've not included new constructed plans in the proposal. Those would require project specific CEQA.
Thanks, Jason. I think we have about 3 questions and comments here about what the initial recommendation is for the Browns Ravine Trail.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss that at the meeting we're going to have specific to Browns Ravine in December next month or January 2022. We wanted to focus on the entire road and trail management plan in this meeting, but we will discuss the Browns Ravine change in use specifically in that meeting in the next month or two.
All right, we have another specific question of what is the status of the proposed trail to connect Negro Bar with the American River Canyon community off of Folsom? Or community of Folsom, I apologize.
There was a project proposal. We were working with the city of Folsom. They were interested in a right of entry permit for a sign in that area. And as part of that, we were working with the city to improve a user-created trail in that location. We have some preliminary project plans. The city wound up putting their sign elsewhere, and so the trail proposal didn't move forward at that time. It's a matter of where we focus our time and energy. There is a user-created trail there. We currently are working on a section of the Pioneer Express Trail in that same area where it climbs up to the Orangevale Bluffs. But so that remains a proposal to improve that user-created trail that the person was referring to by the American River Canyon.
All right, I think we have time for a couple more questions. And then again, we'll be holding all these questions, documenting and following up. And we also will probably be able to take most of them at the end. There was a question about the 7-point evaluation and what assumptions are used when looking at compatibility between user groups.
Yeah, I think I can take that one. Yeah, sometimes it's very difficult to make assumptions when you're looking at user groups because, quite frankly, not all users of one group are the same. There's different skill levels, different attitudes. So we try to take assumptions out of the equation and really look at the physical aspects of the trail in order to determine whether it's compatible for different user groups in terms of sight lines and widths. And so really trying to be more objective and taking assumptions out of the equation and really look at kind of more physical objective criteria in making that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Jason, there's another question here that I see that's a little bit related to this about user groups. So has there been an evaluation to see what users represent the majority of the tax revenue base used to maintain the trails and what type of users contribute to the local economy? So that isn't really a part of the RTMP, but I don't know, it's kind of related to the question you just provided about really focusing on the physical characteristics and the impacts to the trails themselves. But I don't know if you want to add anything else about the economics or tax revenue base.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be part of the road and trail management plan. That would be kind of more of an overriding study looking at recreation economics. And I'm not, although there might be a study out there, I'm not aware of it. And I know that State Parks has not done any kind of recent kind of economic recreational economic study, and I don't know of any plans to do so. That's not saying that we're not open to doing something like that, but it's not in the works right now.
Okay, should we take one or two more and then move on to the next section, and we'll come back to these?
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple questions that are about volunteer groups and adopting a trail. So let me just kind of group some of them together. There's a question about whether state parks would consider adopt a trail. Another one about the potential for volunteer maintenance groups, and whether the plan would create a pathway for qualified groups to help with the backlog of trail maintenance. And I believe there was one other in there that was similar. So maybe We could talk a little bit about volunteer maintenance and also adopt a trail.
So I'll take a stab at the first question for Adopt a Trail. We do currently have an Adopt a Trail program for our paved trail that's administered through our partner, Folsom, our cooperating association. And we have been talking about expanding that program. And in fact, I think they're adding a few more trail miles very soon, and potentially expanding that to the non-paved trails as well. But it's really finding a partner that can assist us in managing that Adopt a Trail program.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add, we've heard a lot interest in utilizing volunteers more than we currently do to help complete trail maintenance. And certainly the road and trail management plan could be a vehicle to provide a framework to make that happen easier. And we know there's a lot of skilled, ready, willing, and able people out there who want to assist with the trail maintenance. And so I think that's definitely an idea to be explored further and developed in the road and trail management plan.
Okay.
We'll do one more.
Yeah, we have one more that's specifically about CIU, or change in use requests. And I think maybe we'll conclude on that one and then pull the rest of the questions to the end of the meeting. So this last question is, with technology evolving so fast, such as the latest electric vehicles, is there an out of cycle process for change in use requests, or does one have to wait until the next decade when the next RTMP gets initiated for an opportunity to request changes? So I think the question is, when can changes be requested?
I think if there's a significant change that occurs, that's different than what we're looking at now, then we would be open to another change in use request after the road and trail management plan. But if really conditions haven't changed much since the initial evaluation, then I don't think we rehash the same old evaluation. So I think it would really depend on if there was some sort of significant change, and it could be technology, it could be some physical change in the park boundaries. There could be reasons that we would do another change in use process, but it would have to be generated by some significant change.
Great. Okay, thank you, Jason. And I think now we're going to move into the next section of the meeting. And again, we will have a Q&A after. This particular section is really to move on to kind of some additional questions and opportunities for people to share thoughts. The purpose is to really learn more from everyone here, just as they mentioned, as we're trying to do from the surveys. I think we've had 700 or upwards take the survey, and it's going to be up for several more months. We have the on-site challenge, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And so here we'd like to run a few additional polls and exercises, a little more detail than what we did at the outset. And we're going to have Janet help explain this exercise and how to go through it. So Janet.
Hi, everyone. Again, we're going to ask you a few questions using a service called Mentimeter. These are really more interactive, and you'll be able to see everyone's answers on the screen. If you could pull up another device like a cell phone or an iPad, or if you're using a desktop in a separate tab or window, go to menti.com and enter in this code. And I actually already see that people are starting to answer the very first question. So again, go to menti.com and use the code. And Ricky, if you could also put in the chat the link to the Mentimeter poll for people to easily access. And so this very first question is, what is your favorite trail or area in Folsom area state parks?
Great. Yeah, so we're this is kind of a word cloud. We're letting everyone type in a name of their favorite trail or area. And, you know, when a name or area is repeated, it's going to, that word is going to get proportionally larger. So it's really kind of a weighted graphic explaining or showing the relative percentage or weight of people's answers. So you can see Granite Bay being the most popular so far. And I can see there's a couple others that say Granite Bay with some more detail. So clearly that is, you know, Granite Bay trails are the most represented here in this question. It looks like someone is asking for the code. I think you can just grab it in the chat. There it is.
Yep, the code is at the top of the screen. It's also, you can click the link that Ricky sent to everyone in the chat that you can see at the top of the screen. You can go to menti.com and enter in the code right there, starting with 9458. And I can see that we have about 42 people who have answered so far.
Yeah, this is not required, obviously, but we think it's fun to get some of the specifics from the people. You know, in the days of virtual meetings, this is a way that we hear from each other without all being talking all at once, but kind of getting a good sense of who's in the room. And maybe give a couple, maybe 30 more seconds, because if it's still moving, that means people are still answering. What do you think? Should we move to the next one? So we'll memorialize the answer to this and have it, you know, available for people to see. So the next question: share one word or phrase to describe Folsom area state parks trails. So any word that comes to mind. The first ones really make an impact because they come in so large. So again, people checking in their ideas, their thoughts about one word that represents the trails at Folsom area state parks.
Yeah, and it looks like we're getting a good mix of things that people love about the trails, as well as some of the challenges or things that could be improved.
We've got the word fun. It's
Yeah.
really standing out large in the middle. So
Extensive just grew.
Jim, any words that pop out that you've never heard to describe Folsom area state parks trails?
No, there's a lot of good ones in there.
They're like treasured Mediterranean. Okay,
Yeah,
so that stopped moving. So I think we can move on to the, well, a couple more coming in. Yeah, so some comments about maintenance. So positives and things to improve upon are coming in.
Yeah, and I see some reference to kind of potentially trail use conflicts as well, and potentially needs for signage. This is we're going to be saving this, of course. This is some great input. So thank you all for your honest thoughts here.
Okay. Thanks. And next question, Janet. The next one: are there 3 issues or concerns that make your trail use less enjoyable and or keep you from using the trails? And this is a question where, you know, we've put in some options, and folks can pick the top 3. I think we're asking if there's other, totally fine to put those in the chat. Oh, sorry, I think we wanted them in the Q&A.
Oh, I think, no, it's fine to put those in the chat because these are just additional thoughts on issues or concerns. And just to clarify what some of these mean, the lack of signage would be potentially lack of wayfinding, confusing orientation, need for trail maps or wayfinding. Amenities could include bathrooms, restrooms, water fountains, other facilities. Lack of desired trail types or features could be a range of things, including technical trails, accessible trails, the specific type of trail of interest. Trail user conflicts, I think we're all familiar with that, but conflicts between different types of user groups. Feeling unsafe, that can be related, of course, to trail user conflicts or the condition of trails, or even the setting and, I guess, eyes on the trail, feeling safe on the trail. And then too crowded, I think that's self-explanatory. It's like, what's our total participation, Janet?
We got 44.
Okay, let's wait one more minute here.
Yeah,
think
so
we
it
have-
looks like lack of desired trail features and trail types really is the top comment, top issue or concern coming out from this poll. And of course, some of these are interrelated, but we did hope to get a little more clarity on the top issues that are on people's minds. I think we can move on to the next one. Next question, are there additional road and trail features or opportunities that are not currently offered that you would like to see? And again, this is a pick 3. If you think there are things that are not, that should have been included or that you'd like to comment on, you can add them in the chat. This again is the top 3.
And just to clarify what some of these categories are, I think restrooms are self-explanatory, as are more trails. Staging areas and parking. Parking is, again, self-explanatory. Staging areas is kind of the broader term that includes both parking as well as any signage or restrooms, water fountains, etc., that may be at a parking area. So it's overall staging. And that does overlap. There are restrooms specifically as another option. Wayfinding signage we talked about. Mountain bike technical challenges that could include technical trails as well as skills parks or other special features. Accessible trails. Equestrian amenities. Again, I think self-explanatory. Trailhead bicycle amenities. This could include parking as well as potentially repair stations or other facilities. I believe there's some similar bicycle amenities along the trailhead on the South American, or the lower down on the American River Parkway. Charging stations would be for electric vehicles or e-bikes. And then bicycle rental opportunities, the last one here. And it looks like more trails is coming in strong. As well as mountain bike technical challenges. Both of those are getting a lot of support tonight.
We also have a comment in the chat for more benches.
Oh, great. It's good to hear specifics. So thank you for sharing that. Excellent.
Great. Yeah, it looks like 45 folks participated in that question. So thank you all for doing that. And that includes the Mentimeter poll questions. Again, we'll save the results of those questions and put them in the summary. And we do have time for additional questions and comments, and we have some that are remaining from the previous round, and feel free. I think we'd love to take some additional time for questions and comments. There have been some additional ones during this last portion. There was a question, so I'll just pick up where we, the first one I see, which is regarding non-system trails and whether those are currently mapped. and if those can be accessed by the public.
Yeah, Jason, you may want to expand on this, or Jim, but many of the non-system trails have been mapped and are being looked at as part of the RTMP. The trail maps that are available on the webpage do not include the non-system trails. And Jim, did you want to?
Yeah, we've mapped, I think, a little over 50 miles of non-system trails, and there are some networks of non-system trails between Browns Ravine and Mormon Island Cove, and then in the North Granite Bay area that we definitely will be addressing in the road and trail plan and making decisions on which trails to keep and adopt, trails we might want to realign, and if there's any that might need to be eliminated. But so many of the non-system trails will get addressed in the plan, but perhaps not all of them.
So I think that connects to this question. You partially answered, or you did answer the other question about new trails. The question was, so likely no new trails in the plan to avoid EIR and NEPA, or can new trails or reroutes be suggested in the RTMP? So I think you answered that, but go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, sorry, hopefully what I said earlier wasn't misconstrued. The road trail management plan, it can certainly propose new trail opportunities and new trailheads and that sort of thing. So I was only speaking to the fact that they can be proposed in the road and trail management plan, but in order to implement them, actually put them on the ground, that new stuff will likely require site-specific CEQA in order to get them on the ground. So I hope that clarifies that.
All right, we have another question, I think that Jason, you may want to answer. It's, how does the definition of recreation area affect how the land is purposed and the trails are evaluated?
That's a good question. I don't know, I think many of you know that state park system consists of many different classifications, anywhere from a state vehicle recreation area, down to a natural or cultural preserve. Folsom is a state recreation area, and therefore its classification allows for more recreation intensive endeavors to occur. So it does make a difference as opposed to a state park classification as to what we feel we can provide in terms of more active recreation opportunities.
Great. Thank you, Jason. The next question I'm looking at is related to volunteers. I think it was in part answered. It's about poor drainage, but it's really specific. Does Folsom Lakes State Park have crew or volunteers that can install culverts to cross trails? So I think Rich, you talked about Adopt a Trail, and Jim about trying to engage volunteers more, but that's really specific about culvert installation. Major work.
Our trail crew can certainly install culverts or install other drainage features on trails. Yeah, so the answer is yes, our trail crew has the ability to install culverts.
Okay, we have one about the outreach and engagement for this process. It says, what stakeholder organizations are you engaging with to seek input? And it says, I can think of FULFAN, ARC, ARPF, Fat Track, etc. I know all of these organizations are represented on our contact list. And Jim or Jason, do you want to talk about engagement with specific groups?
Yeah, I think all of those groups are on the contact list, and some of those groups are groups that we engage with already. Barry and Rich and others have engaged with some of these groups, not on various trails issues, not just the road and trail management plan. So definitely there's all those groups. We want to make sure they're involved in the plan and their voices are heard in the plan. And so if people don't feel like they're on the contact list, or some of these groups aren't on the contact list, let us know. There's multiple ways you can reach out to us through the website and other means.
Here's another question about boating access. It says boating access needs repair too, and will the plan improve boating access and the water trail?
That's a good question. And Jim and I kind of recently discussed that. And the way we're thinking about it now is, considering, non-motorized boat access and kind of more water trail opportunities could be included in the plan. So we're definitely leaving that door open. Once again, we're not looking at, motorized boating facilities and that sort of thing. And I don't think that typically falls under a road and trail management plan, but the idea of having water trails with non-motorized boats and watercraft, we are open to considering that.
Great, thank you. Another question about a specific trail. Are there plans to connect Folsom Point to the Johnny Cash Trail?
Rich mentioned a couple things that are in our general plan, a couple trail proposals, and one was the potential for a trailhead facility at Dike 7, and the potential for Class 1 trail from Dike 7 across to Mormon Island Dam. And if we developed a trailhead at Dike 7, which is right where the Johnny Cash Trail Bridge crosses the Folsom Crossing Road, we'd definitely be working with the city to connect to their Johnny Cash Trail.
Great. Our next question is, let's see, how is trail user safety defined? I can speak to that unless someone, so trail, I see Jason turning his camera off or his mute off. Did you want to take that one, Jason?
I can start, but SB, feel free to chime in. What I can let you know is, trail safety relates to the impact another user might have on somebody, not necessarily the user themselves. Obviously, we want to keep things safe out there for all users, but each user goes out there, knowing the risk involved and what they're doing. And so we're not as concerned with we are concerned with the safety of the user themselves, but, in terms of looking at change in use and compatibility, we're more interested in looking at the impacts that one user can have on another, not that the user may have on themselves. So I'm not sure if that answers your question completely, but that's a little bit of insight anyway. Isby, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that's great. That's great. And we are getting close to 7:30. I think maybe we can take just a couple more questions here. And again, we'll be following up and making sure these are all documented and answered. And let's see, Isabel, did you have one that you wanted to highlight here?
Yeah, there are a few that really were pretty specific to maintenance on specific trails. So I think we welcome comments on those where maintenance is needed or recommendations for connections. But there's a question I see about if a certain user type trail cannot be agreed upon, can a parallel trail be considered so everyone can enjoy the Folsom State Recreation Area? I think it's a little different than the change in use discussion that we had earlier. So I thought maybe that would be one to answer, Jim or Jason.
The plan can consider new trails, whether those are parallel trails or other trails. And if people have that thought or that input, they can certainly provide it as part of giving us their feedback on the road and trail plan, and it's something the planning team would consider.
Great. And, I think we have maybe one last question, because I don't think we've addressed this at all yet, but about electric vehicles and mobility devices. So maybe we conclude with this one. It says, with all different kinds of personal vehicles and mobility devices out there, does one particular type of vehicle need to be explicitly listed as allowed on trails, or would that vehicle effectively be allowed as long as it meets the same requirements as an already allowed personal vehicle?
Rich, feel free to chime in on this one also, but or CCR 4360 essentially states that trails are pedestrian only unless otherwise allowed. So there needs to be an official designation to allow a use other than pedestrian, and those designations usually come out in the form of a district superintendent's order. Regarding e-bikes, the classification of e-bikes, class 1 and 2 and 3, are pretty well spelled out, and you actually need to have a sticker that identifies your bike as a class 1, 2, or 3. So those are the bikes that, if we're allowing them, they need to meet that criteria. So I know there's a lot of kind of homemade e-bikes running around, but if they don't meet the standards of a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike and are labeled as such, then they are not considered allowed.
Great.
Hope that answers your question.
I'll just add that, yeah, we do have our trails posted order for Folsom, and we currently permit class 1 and class 2 e-bikes on the paved trails, and class 1 e-bikes are permitted on our non-paved trails, with where other bicycles are already permitted. With regard to other e-devices, unless it is a mobility device that's necessary for somebody with a disability, we do not permit any other type of e-devices on our trails.
Great. Okay. Well, as we said, we are up at the end of the time, and we want to be respectful. I think we'll wrap up our presentation really quickly, just do some conclusions and next steps. We will document all the questions and comments that were received again. So we thank you for those, and you can send any additional comments via the email address. And to conclude, I'm actually going to turn it over to Barry Smith, District Superintendent, for some final remarks by DPR. And again, sorry, here's our next steps. And as we mentioned, just a recap of the opportunities to engage the survey. And we have more ways to participate. We will talk about those after these few words by Barry. So folks can want to drop off the meeting, they can, and others who want to learn a little more about the app and the challenge that you can participate in at Folsom State Recreation Area. Please stay for a few minutes afterwards. So Barry.
Yeah, thank you. I guess it goes without saying, I just like to thank everyone for their time and participation, and also just the thoughtful questions and comments we had this evening. We're gonna say it over and over again. Your input is critical to this process, and again, this is a process and a plan, and I understand and I can appreciate the frustration over the years and wanting to move things forward, whether that's with volunteers or getting work done on the trails or potential change in use. I hear you, and there's a lot of you, and Rich, Jim and I spent some time meeting with folks and hearing them out and agree. But what I'm looking forward to finishing this plan and moving forward. And this plan, we can write the plan, but it really has to do with all of you and what we do after this, and moving things forward and building that relationship and that trust, and you know, repairing those trails and those issues we have out there. So, you know, I speak for everybody. We look forward to seeing you again at the second meeting to review the draft road and trails management plan. You know, but in the meantime, you know, please feel free to contact our team anytime. We have a website available, the trails@parks.ca.gov. But sincerely, thank you, and I look forward to implementing some change and putting this plan moving forward. And I think that's important to us all. And so thank you for your time again. Next, ISB is going to share with you, those that are interested, on how to participate in the challenge on the Outer Spatial app. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Barry. Yeah, so for those of you who want to stay on for a little bit, I'm going to kind of walk through what to expect when you download the app. In general, just backing up, please remember that there's many ways to provide your input. You can sign up for the mailing list and check out the website if you're not on it. There is the online trail use survey. There's a link here, and the QR code at the very bottom of the screen will also take you to the website where that's available. There's the email address we've talked about throughout the night. And there's also the the on-site challenge. So what we're going to do now is just walk through the experience of downloading the new State Parks app, which is great because you'll also have a trail map with you, both at Folsom and many other state parks. And you can just do the challenge that way. So let's forward on real quick. So I'm going to walk through this, and if you can follow along, that is great. Sometimes phones will take different amounts of time to upload and download, but we'll try to walk a little bit slow so that you do have time to do this with me if you would like to. So the way you do this is this QR code that you see on screen. You can use your photo function on your smartphone and hold it up to the QR code and to scan it, and it'll give you a little pop-up saying open the Outer Spatial. If you get that, you'll go ahead and click yes. And then you'll see a box pop up as you do on the right of the screen. It says get the app. So you will go ahead and select to get the app or download the app. This QR code again is available on the website. It's going to be available on trailhead signs coming up soon. And again, it's available on the screen. All right. So once you get the app and have it downloaded onto your phone, you will see this first screen here under number 1. Welcome to Outer Spatial. So Outer Spatial is the app that is powering the app for state parks. So go ahead and click Get Started. And after you hit click Get Started, you'll have another screen pop up that says Access to your location and wants you to enable location access. It is not necessary to enable location access, but by doing so, it'll allow you to get pop-ups as you move throughout the park. So there'll be different survey questions. So there's a set of questions that we want people to answer at different areas so we can collect information on different areas. So we talked about it's a really extensive trail system, and we want to hear about the trail system from different areas. So this will give you little reminders as you go throughout the park to answer the questions. So we do recommend enabling location access. After you do that, it will ask you to create an account unless you have an Outer Spatial account already. This is a pretty easy account to create, just an email and password. I'm going to take a moment here in case you are following along. And if you are following along and for any reason your device is taking a little bit longer, that's okay. I think most of these prompts are self-explanatory, and this is just a good initial overview of what to expect. The technical part, once you're in the challenge, it'll be more exciting, I promise. All right, so once your account is set up, it'll give you a little information about this specific challenge and ask you to accept the challenge, and you just select accept. So once you've done that, you'll be in the challenge. You'll see a screen like this. We'll have, again, the information about the challenge. And then about midway down, you'll see a little toolbar that says to do. And then next to that is done. So the to do is the list of things you can do next. And the done will have the list of questions or surveys that you've already completed. The first thing that you'll need to do, and you'll see it in your little to-do box, will say pre-visit questionnaire. The pre-visit questionnaire has some optional demographic information just so we can understand who's participating and learn more about users, but it is optional. Once you've done that, in your to-do box, an on-trail questionnaire will come up, and you'll push, go ahead and push ready, and it'll ask you a series of questions about the area that you are currently recreating. At the end of that question, it'll ask you, are you done recreating, or might you want to submit more answers? And you'll hit, I'm not done. I would like to submit more responses. So it'll close down. And then as you walk throughout, or walk, ride, bike, hike throughout the park, when you go to different areas, the park's broken into 7 different areas for the purposes of this challenge. You'll get a reminder. You may get a reminder. Reminders do not always work, but you'll get a reminder to take the, sorry, my charger is not working. You'll get a reminder to answer the questions, and you can do that and basically complete that at different times. And each time you do this for a different area, it will ask you to say which area you're in, and you can complete a new on-trail questionnaire, even if you don't get a pop-up. So as many as you want throughout the park. Once you're done, you will, in your little to-do box, you'll see a post-visit questionnaire. And this just asks for some input on your perspective and any things you've noticed at the end of the process or through this whole process. And quickly, I just want to make sure everyone knows that this app, this is State Parks' new Trails app, and we are using it for this challenge, for this project. This is the first challenge State Parks has done, but it's also just a great tool. And in the bottom, once you have the app open, you'll see these little icons. If you push the green Explore button, that'll take you right to where you are into the Trails maps. And again, this is available for many of the state parks. And it's a great tool and app to have on your phone. And also you can hit the icon that goes to home, and this will go to State Parks homepage within Outer Spatial. And it has updates, more information about state parks, and eventually challenges for other parks as well. If you do have technical questions after this, you can contact visitors at outerspatial.com, and that will be the best resource for technical support. Yeah, it's an exciting new tool, and this is one of the ways that I think State Parks is helping address some of the needs for wayfinding and maps on this pretty dynamic and extensive trail system. So hopefully this tool will be helpful for you, and we really appreciate any input that you are able to provide and using this app.
We had a question in the chat about it that I think is worth mentioning. If you're not able to do the challenge, the survey, the online survey, if you've taken that or plan to take it, it is the same set of questions that are being asked. There's just, it's not notifications as you move through the park. So for some reason you can't do that and answer the survey questions via the challenge. But you are able to take the online survey. Your input definitely will get folded into the summary of survey comments.
Yeah, and you can do both, and we encourage you to do both. Because it is a little different giving advice from within the park versus from your living room. And we know it'll be capturing some unique information. And thank you for everyone who stayed for the app. And I don't see any other questions about the app at this point. All right, well, thank you all. Have a wonderful night, and thank you for staying with us. We look forward to seeing you at the next meeting and throughout the parks.
Thanks, everyone.